The best fights are the ones that you choose. I mean, this is a good military strategy altogether. Nobody wants to be caught off foot. The best war decisions are the ones where you get to go in and make the decision. And that happens when a man is engaged. When you are thinking about how to improve your family, your wife, and your children, and how to glorify God and lead in that direction, then you can consciously make good decisions about what we need to do. But not everything needs to be a fight. Not everything needs to actually go your way. You know, there are decisions about what happens in the home that it can be left to the wife to make without it being egalitarianism or feminism or, down with the patriarchy. Like, good leadership allows those under you to make decisions within their spheres. But also good leadership isn't just complacent. Like, when things need to be addressed, they address it. Just preached this past Sunday about sanctuary cities and how we can hold up sin in particular, this was people harboring a rebel in the Old Testament, and they were about to be destroyed until they chopped off his head. And it's a very physical, bloody example of actually kind of how our hearts are, that we can give sanctuary to sin, and we have to kill it before it kills us. But there's a lot of passivity, there's a lot of false peace that we can have. So choose your battles about what to fight about. Sometimes you can't choose. Sometimes they come to you. But either way, let's work through then the rules when a conflict does arise. When there's a disagreement with your spouse about what to do, whether she's agreeing with your leadership or not, you've got to find a way to make it through this. One of the pastors that I love, Tim Bailey, talks about this as he calls it the tunnel of chaos. Recognizing that when you're going into an argument, you're entering what's called a tunnel of chaos. This is where things can get out of hand. This is where things get tense. Where disagreements happen is there's tenseness, anxiety. Our bodies, have the fight or flight instinct in us. And one of the things is just to recognize that, okay, we're about to hit conflict. We're about to hit some turbulence. All right, let's get our seatbelts on. Let's be prepared so we're not caught off foot. Let's be prepared. We know it's going to be tense, but you're going to be prepared to make it through it. So you're entering the tunnel of chaos, and what helps you get through it are these rules. So number one, the first rule, and this one should be a no-brainer. You would think it would be, but I have to say it. No physical violence and no destruction of property. That includes slamming doors, fists through walls, throwing objects, using your size and strength to intimidate. Like, it includes following your wife around the house, hovering over her. We're going to talk about in a minute fleeing from the scene. That shouldn't be done either, but neither should be there like the stalking around the house until you get what you want. And believe it or not, this is not just for men. This is a rule that both need to hear. In fact, many of the marriage counselings, it's wives hitting men. And so that is a rule in all conflict in marriage. I mean, for one, it's criminal. But two, these things don't allow for good fighting and good peaceful ways to come to the truth. So I'm not going to say a whole lot more about that, other than to say just it would be helpful in a time of good peace, without an intensity of being in a tunnel of chaos, to walk through these rules with your wife. And I've put these on my social media. They're on our church website, sovereignkingchurch.com. You can print them off, put them on your fridge, and that way, hey, in the middle of the conflict, you're in a tunnel of chaos. Man, we're going through this tunnel. This is a scary ride. There's rules to protect us. Let's remember them. So we'll get that rule out of the way. Number two is very similar, but it's more about our words, which is the D word is forbidden. I tell every marriage couple that I'm going to counsel for marriage that I will not marry them if divorce is not off the table for them. It's just not an option. Now, I know it's actually an option. The scriptures give us a few cases where it is an option. But it's not an option when you're disagreeing. It's not an option when you're working through serious issues, other than the two places that scripture gives us. The Westminster says that we're not to come up with all kinds of different ways to give divorce a legitimacy. And that means we don't threaten divorce. You never say you hate your spouse. Those words actually are not fair in the fight, because what you're actually fighting for in the fight is to come to the truth of a matter. You're fighting to either expose sin and bring repentance. You're fighting to bring a disagreement so that there's a way forward. You're fighting to bring your spouse to understand why you are making the decision that you're making, or why she doesn't understand, and you're trying to bring that about. But once you threaten divorce, once violence has entered, the fight is no longer about that. Now the fight is this marriage going to be sustained? And it's not fair when you throw divorce or I hate you, these things, because you're holding the fight hostage to get your way. And many people do this. Now, I would say many women do this, which is why, again, you should go back in peacetime and work through these rules with your wife. Maybe if this is a constant problem, you need to get with your pastor or elder and somebody and help you work through some of these things. I've known of marriages where this is the constant thing. And once that word is out, well, it can't be taken back. It's a forever word. It's painful, and it is not fair, because you can't. The only response to that is either give in and give you your way so that I can maintain the marriage, or respond back in the same kind, even if divorce never actually happens. Threats like that are off the table. Number 3, it's very similar. No insults or character assassination. Like, there's no weaponizing family members. This is very important. You're in a conflict. She's acting like her mom. You know she's acting like her mom. She may know she's acting like her mom. You should not say you're acting just like your mom. It's not helpful. Why? It's just an insult. It's actually not working to bring the truth. Another reason it's not helpful is maybe she doesn't like that aspect of her mom, which is probably why you're bringing it up. But she also loves her mom. So now you've put her in the spot where she has to defend her mom, and she doesn't want to defend her mom at this point. But now you've introduced this conflict in it. Those kind of things are not helpful. Somebody brought this to my attention, I think yesterday or the day before, in which they did tell their wife after a conflict, after a fight, during that fight, you did some things that your mom does. And okay, maybe there's an exception to this rule for something like that, but it wouldn't be in the middle of the heat of the battle. You'd have to know the frame of your wife for this. But I'm gonna say, not helpful. Keep it off limits. Avoid those insults. Avoid forever words like you always or you never. You always do this. Well, am I doing it right now? No. Okay. Well, then I'm not. That's a lie then. You always and you never actually are always or never true. There may be one instance. All you need is one instance to show that they're not. All these first 3 rules are to get us out of acting like unbelievers and pagans and keeping us to fight to what matters, which is the 4th rule, and maybe the most important rule, which is stick to the issue at hand. This is harder than you realize, because in every argument, none of us are like Spock or Data from Star Trek, logical. We bring up tangents. Our arguments can be scattered. There was this thing that used to be called the Gish Gallop, and it came from a creationist who was atheist, and he would just throw out so many arguments, like that, overwhelmed with arguments that without follow-up, so that no matter how many the person would argue, well, they couldn't come back. And again, Christians shouldn't do that. We should try to stay on topic when we're having an argument and think through this. And this will be easier for the man than the woman, which is why I'm giving these rules to you. And you've got to kind of be in the tunnel of chaos, having the argument, keeping the issue in hand. And you also kind of be able to rise above it and look down upon it and help keep the rules. Remind yourself we're getting away from the issue. One of the things that is very tempting is we have these things in our, just the way our brain works is we connect one dot to the next. That's why conspiracy theories always seem to make a lot of sense, even if they're not true. You can, I do this all the time when I'm out in public, or I'll see somebody and they always make me think of somebody else. Like, this person looks like this or whatever. We connect the dots. And one of the ways we do that is we connect the dots. This argument sounds a lot like the last argument, which sounds like the last argument. And so now this argument is about the last argument and the argument and all the stuff that happened then. You got to stay on the topic. Like, you come home and the argument is about whether we're going to go to her parents' house this weekend. And maybe you had a similar argument about this like 2 or 3 months ago, or it becomes a constant argument. You're going to be tempted to bring it into everything, even though it's maybe closely related. You need to keep it on this. And if it is about all those things, maybe it is about, well, what are we doing overall about our relationship with your parents? Well, then you need to keep it on that, and maybe not on this coming weekend. Whatever it is, you need to recognize this is what needs to be discussed. This is what needs to be argued about. This is what I need to win her to and argue with her about. Very important. Stick to the issue. This is not an opportunity to bring up every past irritation, offense that's ever happened.